The Curse of 7 Blackwood Lane. A true story. They say every town has that one house, the one everyone whispers about, dares each other to walk past after dark, the one that looks like it's holding its breath when the wind dies down. In Hollow Creek, that house was the Carter place. It stood at the far edge of town on a road that wasn't really a road anymore, just broken gravel and weeds pushing up through the cracks. Nobody lived on Blackwood Lane. Not anymore. The Carters had been gone for decades, but the house stayed, leaning crooked under its sagging roof, its windows black and hollow like blind eyes. Kids swore if you stared long enough, something inside would blink. I never believed the stories. Not really. Ghost tales were just fuel for campfires, excuses to grab someone's hand when the woods got too quiet. But the Carter house, it had a way of crawling into your head whether you wanted it there or not. People in Hollow Creek didn't talk about it in daylight. At night, when you passed by the end of the lane, you crossed yourself, or you walked faster. That was before the bonfire, before the dare. It was late October, the air sharp with wood smoke and beer and that sour smell of leaves rotting in the ditch. Tyler had brought half the senior class down to Miller's Field. We'd built a bonfire big enough to see from the highway, a pillar of flame licking at the stars. Music thumped from someone's truck. People laughed, shouted, stumbled into the shadows, but I couldn't shake the way Tyler kept looking at me across the fire. He had that grin, the one that said trouble was coming. He waited until everyone was listening. Then he leaned in, beer can dangling loose in his fingers. "Bet you won't last an hour in the Carter house," he said. The fire popped. Sparks shot into the dark. Megan snorted. Chris shook his head, muttering something about how I'd chicken out. I felt all their eyes, felt my pride tighten around my throat. "I'll do it," I said before I could stop myself. The laughter started low, then grew, rolling around the fire. Some clapped, some called me insane. Tyler's grin just got wider. "Midnight," he said. "We'll walk you down to the porch. One flashlight. 1 hour, that's all." I nodded, but inside I was already regretting it. My chest felt hollow. My skin prickled in the cold. The rest of the night blurred. The music, the smoke, Megan's nervous glance. All I could see was the black shape of that house rising against the tree line. All I could hear was the way the older kids used to whisper about what had happened there. A family of 4 that never came out. Police said murder-suicide. Folks in town said the house kept them. Midnight came fast, too fast. The fire had burned low. The others trailed behind me, a half-drunk parade with nervous laughter. The road crunched under our boots, every step taking us deeper into the quiet. Blackwood Lane was darker than the woods. The trees leaned in heavy, muffling the wind, muffling everything. And then there it was, the Carter house. It rose from the weeds like a carcass, its roofline broken, shingles curling like black tongues. The porch sagged forward, boards warped and swollen with years of rain. Windows stared blank, reflecting nothing. The closer we got, the colder the air felt. Not just October cold, something else. A damp chill that settled into my bones. Chris muttered, "Place looks like it's breathing." No one laughed. When we reached the porch, Tyler shoved the flashlight into my hand. "1 hour," he said. "If you make it, you're a legend." I wanted to tell him I didn't care about being a legend. I wanted to tell him I was done. But Megan was watching, biting her lip, and everyone else was waiting. So I stepped up onto the porch. The boards groaned under my weight, long and low like something waking up. Behind me, the others were already backing away, their voices dimmed, swallowed by the dark. Tyler called out, "See you in an hour." Then it was just me. Me and the house. The door was half open, not wide, just enough to show a strip of darkness inside, like the house was already expecting me. I pushed. The hinges shrieked, metal against metal, too loud in the silence. The smell hit first. Damp wood, mold, something sour beneath it all, like meat gone bad. The beam of my flashlight cut a narrow path through the dark. Dust swirled like tiny insects in the light. "Just an hour," I whispered. My own voice sounded small, thinner than I wanted. The entryway opened into a hall, wallpaper peeled in long curls, patterns of faded roses half sliding off the walls. The floor creaked under every step, each sound echoing back as though the house wanted to announce me. I passed a mirror hanging crooked. For a second, I didn't want to look, but I did. My reflection stared back, pale, eyes wide. And just before I turned away, I swear, it blinked late, like it was catching up. The air pressed heavy the deeper I went. I tried to breathe through my mouth, but the taste of the place clung to my tongue. Damp rot, copper, something chemical. Rooms opened off the hallway. A living room sagged under the weight of broken furniture. A couch collapsed into itself like a body without bones. The kitchen beyond still held dishes on the counter, rust blooming where knives had been left to rot. I told myself it was just a house, just wood and nails. But every step I took, I felt it under my skin, that crawling awareness, like the house knew I was inside. I checked my phone. Midnight, 07 minutes, 53 more to go. I found the staircase. It climbed into darkness, carpet moth-eaten and black with stains I didn't want to name. At the top, a door stood open, waiting. I swallowed hard and lifted the flashlight. The beam shook. My hand shook, but I climbed anyway. The first step groaned. The second cracked. Halfway up, I swore I heard it. A whisper. Low, faint, like breath sliding along the back of my neck. "Go back." I froze, heart hammering, breath locked. The house groaned again, deeper this time, as though agreeing. But I didn't turn around. I climbed. At the top, the hallway stretched long and narrow. The wallpaper here curled like skin peeling from flesh. Doors lined either side. Most were closed. One, at the end, was open just enough to show black. The whisper slid along the hall. "Go back." I told myself it was the wind. Just the wind. The air was still. Dead still. I walked toward the open door anyway. And inside that room was the mirror. The room smelled wrong. Not like mold, not like dust. It was sharper, coppery, almost sweet, like the air right after you bite your tongue. My flashlight beam wavered over the room. A narrow bed collapsed against the wall, springs sticking through the mattress like exposed ribs. Toys scattered across the floor, colorless from years of neglect. A stuffed rabbit leaned in the corner, its button eyes staring. And against the far wall stood a mirror. It was taller than me, framed in dark wood, warped with water stains. The glass was cracked down the center, jagged like a scar. Dust lay thick on everything else in the room, but the mirror's surface was clean. Too clean. I swallowed, throat dry, and raised the light. My reflection stared back. Same jeans, same hoodie, same pale face. But something was off. The reflection didn't move right. When I tilted my head, it followed a heartbeat late. When I shifted my flashlight, the reflection's beams seemed brighter, sharper, cutting deeper into the dark behind it. And then, it smiled. I wasn't smiling. My lips were pressed tight, my jaw locked. But the reflection's mouth spread wide, teeth too white, too many. The smile stretched until the skin cracked at the corners. Blood trickled down its chin. I stumbled back, the flashlight jerking. The beam swung across the wall, caught the stuffed rabbit, its head turned. I froze. When I whipped the light back, the rabbit sat still, limp and gray. But the mirror, the reflection wasn't standing where I was anymore. It was closer. Half a step forward, its body pressed against the inside of the glass, palms flat, teeth gleaming in that impossible smile. And it whispered, "Stay." The words slid across the air like ice under my skin. I ran. The door slammed behind me, a thunderclap of wood and iron. I bolted down the hall, heart pounding, breath tearing out of me. Every step creaked, cracked, shouted my panic back at me. But the hallway didn't end. It stretched, too long, far longer than the house could be. Door after door blurred past, closed, locked, endless. I glanced back once, just once, and saw the reflection walking behind me. Not running, walking, each step perfect, measured, its grin never fading. I turned forward again and ran harder. Finally, stairs. I stumbled down them, nearly falling, flashlight beam jerking wildly. When I hit the bottom, I froze. Because I wasn't in the entryway anymore. I was in the dining room. The table stood in the center, long and heavy, wood black with rot. 4 chairs surrounded it. One had collapsed, its legs snapped. The others were pulled out slightly, as if waiting. The table was set. Plates, silverware, cups, all coated in grime and rust, but arranged with care. And on each plate lay something. The first plate held a phone. Not mine, Tyler's. The case cracked, the screen smeared red. The second plate held a necklace. Megan's. Silver chain knotted with something dark and wet. The third plate, Chris's hoodie, torn and soaked. The fourth plate was empty, waiting. My stomach clenched, my throat closed. I backed away, shaking my head, whispering, "No, no, no." The chairs scraped back. One by one, slow, deliberate, as though unseen guests were taking their seats. The sound of wood grinding against wood clawed down my spine. Then came the chewing, wet, loud, smacking, like mouths tearing meat from bone. But no one was there, just the plates, just the table. I dropped the flashlight. It rolled across the floor, the beam slicing shadows into moving shapes. And for a second I saw them. Tyler, Megan, Chris, sitting at the table, pale, empty-eyed, chewing nothing, jaws working, lips slick with red. I screamed. The sound echoed, warped, thrown back at me, not as my voice, but theirs. I ran again. Through a door, through another hall. The walls groaned, the floor tilted, the ceiling sagged low like it wanted to crush me. The whisper followed. "Stay." Doors slammed open as I passed, revealing flashes, rooms filled with broken toys, with rotting furniture, with mirrors that showed not me, but the grinning thing. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I yanked it out, desperate, shaking hands smearing the screen. A message glowed. "From Tyler. Behind you." I spun. Nothing. The hall stretched empty. But in the mirror at the end, my reflection stood closer now, its hands against the glass. And this time, the crack in the mirror was wider. I don't know how long I ran. The halls looped, twisted, folded in on themselves. Every turn brought me back to the same places. The dining room, the upstairs hall, the room with the mirror. Each time the reflection was closer. Each time its grin stretched wider, its eyes blacker, hollow like pits in the earth. At last I slammed through a door and tumbled into a new room. The air hit me first, hot, wet, stinking of iron and rot. I raised the flashlight. It was a nursery. Dozens of dolls lined the shelves. Cracked porcelain faces turned toward me. Their painted eyes were wrong. Too real, too wet, glistening in the light. As I stepped in, their mouths opened, all at once, and they whispered, layered, endless, "Stay, stay, 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 stay." The sound built, higher, sharper, until it was almost a scream. I clamped my hands over my ears and stumbled backward. The flashlight slipped, beam rolling across the dolls. And for a second, they weren't dolls at all. They were faces, human faces, stretched, gray, pressed into porcelain, eyes begging, mouths screaming. My friends. Megan's eyes met mine, wide, terrified. "Help me," she mouthed. The room tilted. I fell hard. The flashlight snapped off. Darkness swallowed everything. And in the dark, something cold touched my hand. Fingers, thin, clammy, curling tight. The cold hand didn't let go. It pulled. I thrashed, boots kicking, fingers clawing at the floorboards, but the grip dragged me across the darkness like I was weightless. The wood groaned under my body, splinters slicing through my palms. My breath came ragged, panic screaming in my throat. And then, the floor gave way. I plunged downward, the air ripping past me, a scream tearing out of me. The fall seemed endless until I slammed into something soft, wet. The stench hit me instantly. Copper, rot, bile. I gagged and scrambled to my feet, flashlight flickering weakly back to life. The beam spread across the room and froze on the floor. Blood. I stood knee-deep in it. The liquid was thick, dark, clinging to my jeans. It rippled with every breath I took. The walls were draped in torn fabric, crimson curtains hanging like flayed skin. The ceiling sagged low, dripping. And in the center of the room, lit by candles that burned with black flame, stood a banquet table. It was massive, longer than the room should have allowed, stretching into shadow. Plates and goblets filled its surface, meat piled high on silver platters, steaming, glistening. Wine spilled over in crimson rivers. Figures sat around it. At first I thought they were statues, but then they turned. All at once, their faces gray, lips black, eyes hollow sockets that still somehow stared straight at me. They smiled, every one of them. The sound came next, not whispering, not chewing, singing. Low, guttural, words I didn't understand, rumbling through the floor, through my bones. I backed away, heart slamming. My flashlight trembled in my hand. One of them stood. It wore a suit, though the fabric sagged, soaked with blood. Its head lolled as though the neck was broken, but its grin never faltered. It raised a goblet. "To our guest," it croaked, voice tearing like rusted metal. The others joined, lifting their cups, the song swelling into a wail. My knees buckled, my ears rang, and then they began to eat. The feast was obscene. Hands clawed at the platters, tearing meat, cramming fistfuls into mouths that stretched too wide. Bones cracked, flesh tore, blood sprayed. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, because I knew what they were eating. It wasn't animal. It wasn't food. It was human. Faces I half recognized in the torn skin, the glints of jewelry, the scraps of clothing. My friends, strangers, dozens of victims. Megan's necklace, Tyler's shoes, Chris's torn sleeve. My stomach lurched. I dropped to my knees, retching into the blood that lapped at my thighs. When I looked up again, they were staring at me. All of them, hands dripping, mouths full, eyes hollow, and they began to chant, "Stay, stay, stay, stay." The sound pounded like a drum, faster, harder, shaking the table, rattling the plates. The man in the suit stepped forward, goblet in hand. He leaned down, his empty sockets inches from my face. "You are the last course." He tipped the goblet. Hot, thick liquid splashed over my face, my lips, my tongue. Blood. I screamed and shoved backward, slipping in the pool, crashing against the table leg. Plates clattered, meat spilled, hands reached for me, grasping, clawing. And then the candles blew out. Darkness swallowed the room. I groped blindly, crawling, slipping, my fingers sliding on wet flesh. The chant continued, louder now, surrounding me, rising into shrieks. My flashlight flickered. I swung it around desperately. The room was empty. The table was gone. The figures gone. I stood in a narrow hallway, dripping, shaking, my breath ragged. But the blood remained. It clung to me, sticky and hot, soaking my clothes, matting my hair, and behind me, footsteps. Slow, wet, I spun. Nothing. The hallway stretched long, shadows deep. But I wasn't alone. I felt it, watching, breathing. A whisper slithered through the dark. "Last course." I stumbled forward, every step heavy. The blood dripped from me in thick streams, marking the floor with smeared footprints. Doors lined the hall again. Some cracked open. Behind one, I saw Megan. She sat in a chair, head tilted, eyes wide and glassy. Her lips moved, soundless, forming words I couldn't hear. I pressed closer, hand trembling as I pushed the door wider, and her head snapped toward me. The mouth tore open. "Run!" The door slammed in my face, rattling the frame. I staggered back, heart racing. The whispers flooded the hall now, rising, layered, thousands of voices, chanting, laughing, crying. I broke into a sprint, feet slamming against the wood, breath tearing through my lungs. The hall twisted, warped, spun, until I burst into another room. This one was worse. It looked like a ballroom once. Chandeliers hung from the ceiling, their crystals shattered, dangling like jagged teeth. The floor was slick with dark stains. And the walls. The walls were covered in portraits, dozens, hundreds of them. Each one showed a person, different clothes, different eras, different lives. But every portrait had the same eyes, black, empty. I stepped closer to one painting. My stomach dropped. It was Megan. Her smile was painted wide, her eyes voids. The next was Tyler, then Chris, then strangers, and then me. I froze. The painting showed me exactly as I was now, drenched in blood, flashlight trembling in my hand, eyes wide with terror. But the painted version was smiling, grinning wide, teeth sharp. And as I watched, the painted eyes blinked. I stumbled back, hitting the wall. The portraits shuddered, their painted figures twitching, mouths opening, whispering all at once. "Stay, stay, stay, stay." The canvas bulged, fingers pressed through, tearing the paint, clawing for me. The chandelier swung violently, glass raining down, slicing my arms, my face. I bolted for the far door, shoving it open, slamming it behind me, and found myself back in the nursery. The dolls were gone, the shelves were empty, but the crib in the center now held something, wrapped in stained cloth, twitching, crying. A baby's wail filled the room, high and piercing. I stepped closer despite every nerve in me screaming not to. My hands shook as I peeled back the cloth. The bundle wasn't a baby. It was a face, my face, eyes opening, mouth stretching wide, and it whispered in my voice, "You are already part of the house." The bundle slipped from my hands. It hit the floor with a wet thud, rolling once before stopping. My own face stared up at me from the cloth, lips still moving, whispering, "Already part of the house." I staggered back, bile rising in my throat. My flashlight flickered, the beam jittering across the empty shelves. Dolls were gone, yes, but the shadows still leaned forward, like something unseen filled their shapes. The wailing didn't stop. Even without the bundle in my arms, the baby's cry pierced the air, louder now, layered, echoing through the walls. It wasn't a baby's cry anymore. It was screaming. Dozens, hundreds, voices of all ages, all tones, pleading, begging, shrieking. "Let us out. He's coming. Stay with us. Run." The last voice boomed so loudly the shelves cracked. I turned and bolted. The door slammed shut behind me, rattling the hinges. I sprinted through a new corridor, flashlight beam bouncing across torn wallpaper and gaping holes in the floor. The air grew heavy, damp. Every breath burned like smoke. Somewhere behind me, footsteps pounded, slow, heavy, not chasing, just following. Every turn I took, the sound followed. Every time I looked back, the hall was empty, but the footsteps never stopped. I turned a corner and froze. The corridor had no floor. Only darkness yawned below, stretching forever. But a narrow beam of wood extended across like a makeshift bridge. I swallowed hard, toes curling inside my soaked shoes. The footsteps behind me grew louder, closer. No choice. I stepped onto the beam. It creaked under my weight, bowing slightly. My arms spread wide, flashlight clenched in my fist. Step by step, don't look down, don't look back. Halfway across, I glanced forward, and my blood turned to ice. At the far end stood my reflection. It wasn't in glass this time. It was real, grinning, arms outstretched, waiting. Its mouth opened. "You'll never leave." The beam cracked. I dropped to my knees, clutching it, the flashlight tumbling into the darkness below. My reflection laughed. My laugh warped, echoing from both ends of the corridor. I crawled forward, splinters cutting into my palms. Behind me, the footsteps thundered closer, shaking the beam. When I reached the far end, the reflection stepped aside, bowing mockingly, its grin splitting wider. I scrambled past it, throwing myself onto solid floor. When I dared to look back, the reflection was gone. So was the beam. Only darkness stretched behind me, and yet the footsteps remained. I pushed forward, heart hammering. Every room I entered now seemed the same, familiar but twisted. The dining room again, but this time the plates were filled with teeth. The ballroom again, but the portraits were blank canvases, dripping red. The nursery again, but the crib was empty, rocking on its own. I wasn't moving forward. I was trapped. The house was folding me in, turning every corner into another piece of its body. The whispers agreed. "You are ours. Stay. Feed the house." I clutched my head, screaming, "Stop!" And for the first time, silence. The quiet was worse. I lowered my hands slowly. The hall stretched ahead, dim but empty. No whispers, no footsteps. Just silence. And then, a door opened at the far end. Light spilled out. Warm. Golden. For the first time since I entered, it looked safe. I staggered toward it, chest heaving, hope rising sharp and painful. The closer I came, the brighter it glowed, until it blinded me. I stepped through and gasped. I was outside. The night air hit me like a wave, cool, fresh, real. I stumbled onto the cracked pavement of Blackwood Lane, my legs buckling. I dropped to my knees, sucking in lungfuls of freedom, tears streaking my bloodied face. The house loomed behind me, dark and silent, windows like dead eyes. I was out. I'd escaped. But something was wrong. The street was empty. No cars, no wind, no sound, not even crickets. I stood slowly, turning in circles. The world was still, frozen. And then I saw it. Every house on the street, identical. Blackwood Lane stretched on both sides, lined with the same house, the same dark windows, the same front door, the same house, dozens, hundreds, infinite. I stumbled backward, shaking my head, whispering, "No, no." Behind me, the door creaked open. I turned. The house was open, waiting, its dark throat yawning wide. And in the reflection of its window, I saw myself, not standing where I was, but inside, grinning. The reflection raised its hand slowly, curling its finger, beckoning. And in the silence of the frozen street, I heard the whisper, "You never left." The street stretched forever. Everywhere I turned, it was the same house repeating, walls rotting, windows dead, roofs sagging like broken spines. The air hung heavy, thick, no breeze, no sound. My footsteps echoed too loudly, like the world was hollow beneath me. I pressed my hand to my chest. My heart hammered so hard it felt foreign, like it belonged to someone else. And then I realized the echo of my footsteps didn't stop when I stopped walking. I froze. The echo continued. A step behind me, then another. Slow, steady. I turned, flashlight beam cutting across the still night. Nothing. Just the street, the houses, the silence. But the air felt heavier now, thick enough to choke. I raised the light again and caught it. My shadow. It stretched long on the pavement, but it wasn't mine. I wasn't moving. It was. The shadow straightened, pulling away from my feet like oil lifting off water. It rose, tall, featureless, only the shape of me, but darker, denser. And then it smiled. Not with a mouth, with teeth, white, sharp, splitting the darkness where its face should be. The same smile I'd seen in every mirror, the smile that wasn't mine. Finally, it whispered, voice soft, rippling across the air like silk tearing. I stumbled back. What are you?" The shadow tilted its head. "I am you. The part you left behind, the part the house keeps." It stepped forward, each footfall sinking into the ground like tar. "You thought you escaped." Its grin widened. "You never left." I ran. The houses blurred past, each identical door and window screaming at me with their sameness. My lungs burned, legs screaming with every stride. But the shadow didn't chase. It didn't need to, because no matter where I ran, the street bent, curved, folded back on itself. And there it was, always behind me, always smiling. I ducked into one of the houses, door slamming behind me, flashlight beam jittering across the entryway. The air was the same, damp, heavy. I wasn't outside at all. I was still in the house. The walls pulsed faintly, like they were breathing. The floor squelched beneath my shoes, sticky, wet. A voice drifted from upstairs. "Megan," calling my name. I swallowed hard, every muscle trembling. Against every instinct, I climbed the stairs. Each step groaned like it carried centuries of weight. At the top, the hall stretched long, endless. Megan stood at the far end. Her eyes were wide, wet with tears, her hand reaching for me. "Please," she whispered, "help me." I ran, faster than I ever had, my arms outstretched, fingers desperate to catch hers. But as I drew closer, her face shifted, her eyes darkened, her smile stretched wide. And when I reached her, Her skin peeled back, falling like paper. Underneath was the shadow. It lunged, cold hands wrapped around my throat, squeezing, lifting me off the ground. My flashlight fell, spinning, casting wild shadows on the walls. Its teeth glowed in the dark, white and endless. "You were always mine," it hissed, voice vibrating through my bones. I clawed at its grip, kicking, choking, vision blurring. Then I remembered. The whispers. The house only wanted one thing: for me to stay. I forced the word out, strangled through its grip. "No." The shadow's grin faltered. I choked again, louder this time. "I won't stay." The walls shook. The floor split. A roar filled the air, thousands of voices screaming at once. The shadow shrieked, its grip loosening. I fell to the ground, coughing, lungs on fire. Around me, the house convulsed, rooms tearing open, stairs collapsing, portraits screaming. The shadow reeled, its body flickering, stretching thin. It lunged again, but I rolled aside, grabbing the flashlight, smashing the beam straight into its chest. The light pierced it, burning. It howled, teeth dissolving, body collapsing inward. For the first time since I'd entered, the house grew quiet, silent. I staggered to my feet. The hall was gone. The walls, the stairs, the ceilings, all gone. I stood in darkness. Just me, and a single door ahead. Wooden, plain, waiting. I reached for the handle with shaking hands, pulled it open, and stepped outside. Dawn light spilled across Blackwood Lane. Birds sang. Wind rustled the trees. The world was alive again. I stumbled into the street, tears blinding me, laughter tearing from my throat. I was free. I was free. But then, my shadow stretched before me in the morning sun. It wasn't mine. It smiled. The sunlight was warm on my skin. Too warm. I stood in the middle of Blackwood Lane, chest heaving, blood drying on my clothes. For the first time in what felt like days, I breathed air that didn't stink of rot. It should have felt like freedom, but all I could see was the shadow, stretched across the cracked pavement, black and sharp in the dawn light. Grinning, I forced myself not to look at it, not to acknowledge it. If I didn't look, maybe it would fade. Maybe it was just exhaustion, trauma, my mind tearing itself apart. I whispered to myself, "It's over. It has to be over." The shadow whispered back, "Not yet." I staggered down the street. Every house looked normal again. Shutters sagging, lawns overgrown, roofs caving, but lifeless in the way abandoned houses should be. Not watching, not breathing. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling of eyes on me. Every step felt rehearsed, like I was walking a path I'd already taken. At the end of the street, I saw my car, exactly where I'd left it. Relief burst through me so sharp, it almost hurt. I sprinted, fumbling for my keys, throwing myself into the driver's seat. The engine coughed, then roared to life. I gripped the wheel with shaking hands. Just go. Don't look back. And I didn't. Not until the rearview mirror caught my eyes. It wasn't my reflection. It was his, the grin, the teeth, sitting in the back seat, leaning forward, close to my ear. "You can't drive away from yourself," I screamed, swerving, the car skidding across the road, tires shrieking. The world tilted, spun, then slammed into silence. I woke on the pavement, head ringing, blood hot in my mouth. The car was crumpled against a tree, smoke curling from the hood. I dragged myself up, bones screaming, vision blurred, and froze. The house stood in front of me, not behind, not down the street. Right there, door open, waiting. The shadow loomed beside it, smiling wider than ever. "You never left," it whispered. I stumbled back, clutching my head. No, no! But the street was gone. The trees, the sky, the air itself, all gone. Only the house remained. I was standing in its entryway again. The circle had closed. My knees buckled. My body shook. I laughed, hysterical, broken, tears streaming, because I finally understood. There was no outside, no escape. The house wasn't a place. It was forever, and I was part of it now. But then, the door opened behind me. Light spilled in. Real light. Sunlight. I turned, breath catching. A figure stood there. A woman. Backpack slung over her shoulder. Flashlight in hand, staring at me with wide eyes. Just like I had been. Before it all began. She whispered, "Hello? Is someone here?" And in the shadows beside her, I felt myself smile.